everyone, I'm Heather. I am back after an unintentional hiatus of roughly a month. I apologize for that. Like, unless you didn't notice. Maybe you didn't notice, and that's cool. Like, forget I mentioned it. But I've been off for a bit, just sorting my life out, basically, because I feel that at certain times there's a lot of life to be lived and a very short amount of time to live it in, and everything goes a bit wonky. I went on holiday in Spain for a bit, and that fucked everything up at work. Then also it like smacked up against this trip that my kid had to take to Bournemouth for cheerleading. And then that whole trip was just a nightmare. Like trains, like I don't know where you live, okay? If you live in America, you live in the UK, you live in Europe, whatever. If you live in a country where your trains are cheap and work really well, like fuck you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't fuck you, don't. Like, that's brilliant for you. I'm so happy for you. I love that for you. Here in the UK, the trains are shite. And I'm not gonna, like, lay that on the people of Britain. I'm gonna lay that on the train companies that are shite. But don't get me into whole rants, okay? Because that's not where this is going. This is not what this is for. Also, I'm like looking at the bits behind me in my house now, trying to see if you can tell how messy it is. And I think it looks okay. Like, this is a situation. Please don't judge me for that because my life is a mess. Like, this book Freakout tag has bit me in the ass, my dudes. Like, it started sort of popping up and I was like, wait, what are you guys doing? We don't do that till July. It's July now. It's the 7th of July, okay? And I looked at it this morning. The 4th of July already happened. Where the fuck was that? I completely missed it, okay? I did not on the 4th of July register at any point that it was the 4th of July, so that's a miss. That's just missed now, and I'm gonna have to catch that on the next go round, you know? Just like wait till next year and catch it on the next go. That's wasted. That's on me, that. Damn. But anyway, book Freakout tag. Let's do it. I'm back. Sorry. Okay, mid-year book Freakout tag. So I'm gonna put as much information as I know about this tag down below, so like questions and stuff like that. Who created it and when it was created, I don't actually know. I don't think. Like, I'll give it a good look around and then put it down below if I find it, but I think that sort of information is now lost to the black abyss of the booktubes. Like, it's gone. First question is, what's the best book you've read so far this year? And who has the ability to come up with the best book they've read even through half a year? I've read like 60 something books this year. The best book of 60 books? No friend. It's impossible to do. So I've come up with three of the best. And then a lot of the other ones that are the best, I've included them in the questions down below, you know, to sort of like also give them face time. So first one, The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. This one was weird. Like super weird. Okay, the premise basically is you've got these monsters. So you've got like a sort of Frankenstein's monster sort of guy who wears a plague mask, okay? And then you've also got a mermaid. But the mermaid isn't like a Disney princess sort of mermaid. It's like an old school, like Brothers Grimm type mermaid. Do you know what I mean? Like, she eats whole people alive, you know? She's like fierce as F. You know, all of her children come out in like fish eggs and then like eat whole communities, you know, like, and they're going basically like, something's happened. It's like apocalyptic where the mermaid and her children have taken part somehow in like the sort of apocalyptic destruction of the kingdom. And now it's this Frankenstein's monster plague doctor guy and this mermaid are sort of the only ones left over, and they're now walking through, you know, huge swaths of land towards something. You don't know. It's not clear. And they come upon this other sort of community made of children who are like being harvested. So they sort of die. They kill each other and then they're raised back up. But they're raised back up by these like angels or these like doctor men who put them back together minus some of the things, like minus an eyeball or something, and then they take the eyeball and it like allows them, you know, to live, you know, immortally without dying. They just sort of live and live and live, like with these like harvested bits. Like, okay, I know, I feel like I've already lost you here, but the language in it, like it's poetic, and loads of the words that the author uses, I had to look them up. Like, I literally have never seen that word in my life. And when I looked it up, I realized that that's the absolute perfect word that could be used here. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even know it existed, and now I understand that it perfectly captures this particular situation and now can use it just in life moving forward, if that situation ever arises, which it probably won't, because this book is weird. Anyway, it was definitely a horror book and had quite a bit of gore, I'd say, which isn't my favourite. Like, my favourite kind of horror is just more sort of like creepy and dark and like, you know, I don't know, like folk horror and stuff like that. Like, not like grossness, like gore and stuff like that. But this one, it was so beautiful. It was so poetic and like ambiance, like vibe. Like, this author, vibe queen of a vibe. It was so dark and weird and like the best so far this year, I reckon. I think, other than these other ones. Wait. Okay, next one I read during Deweython, the month where we sort of read Welsh books, and it was Drift by Caryl Lewis, and I think loads of people were slating this one. They were saying it was stupid, but I don't agree. Okay, I really liked it. It was basically this girl and her brother. They live in this sort of remote, rural, sort of coastal Welsh community, and there's something up with the sister, and the brother's sort of like constantly going away for work. He like works on a ship and he works in docks and blah blah, and he's also got like, you know, a girl that he sees, so he goes away a lot. But when he leaves his sister behind, he leaves her behind heavily medicated, because there's something up with the sister that frightens him, and we don't know what it is. Is it, I don't know, like erratic behavior, or you don't know. You find out it's something like really cool, like supernaturally cool to do with the ocean. I don't want to like give it away, but basically there's this other guy as well. He's from Syria and he's been taken prisoner for, like, you find out later, but you're sort of in the dark for most of the book, sort of like thinking, oh, you know, you're led to believe maybe it's sort of terrorism related or whatever, or sort of like war related. Anyway, he's being kept at this military base prison near to this community in Wales, this coastal community. And they try to transport him from like one prison to another prison or something like that, and something goes wrong, there's like a landslide or whatever, and he escapes and he makes his way to this cottage with this woman in it, and she helps him, and like, so I'm gonna leave it there. But I loved it. I thought it was brilliant, so good. And I think, okay, loads of people said it was too cheesy. They gave it like really like cheesy 2-star reviews, like this is not good. But I disagree, okay? Who doesn't love a bit of cheesy nothingness every once in a while? And I didn't even think it was that cheesy. I thought it was very good. So, you know, I say do it. Third one is Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. And this one, I just finished it recently and it's brilliant. The dog is trying to scratch herself. In the loudest possible way a dog can scratch herself. She's going to do it again. Maisie! Oh my god. What was I even saying? Anyway, this one is super fun. I think it's officially horror, right? But it's like comedic horror, and the horror parts aren't very horror-y. I would say it's just fun and funny. And it's based on the show The Bachelor, okay? You know that show where you've got one guy and he's got like 10 women, and he's got to, over the course of the season for the show, like each episode, pick one of the women to vote off. And then by the end of the show, in total, he like dates that person, like he's trying to pick one person. So in the book, we're at the stage where there's 4 women left, but they make a big deal of how this, like, the heyday of the show was 20 years ago. So like the production value and like the costs they can use, the resources they have to sort of run the show are lacking. And now on location, they're on an island, but it's not like, you know, Greece or Spain or Jamaica or like a beautiful island. It's just basically in the Pacific Northwest, sort of like a quick, you know, hop from Seattle. And it's known for natural beauty and hiking and things like that. And also, I think for gay tourism, or sort of like lesbian hiking and things like that, it's been known for. But in the past, in the 90s, like 2 or 3 hikers like went missing or were murdered or something like that. There was some sort of incident which took a hit to the tourism. And now this show is like filming with their last sort of 4 women left and the guy who's supposed to pick them. And you get a view from all of the people involved. So all 4 of the women, they get their own chapters to sort of say their own narration from their own minds, which is really interesting because they're all quite different people and they're good characters. But the main thing is that there's something in the woods. What's in the woods? I don't know. Could it be that this, as the home of Sasquatch, means that there is an actual Bigfoot in the woods? Dun, dun, dun. I'm not gonna give it away. I'm not gonna be like that person and like spoil it for you. But I'm gonna leave it there. It's brilliant. It's really funny. Like, you know, Maisie has to leave right now. Right now! Oh my god. I just let Maisie out just then and I didn't realise, like, I could see something up on the fence, and as I was opening the door I realised too late, it's a cat. And I think it was my neighbour's cat, Cannon, and she was jumping down as Maisie was going out, and like it was too late, I couldn't stop her. Like my dog's not, you know, like aggressive or like angry or like, you know, violent in any particular way, but she is a greyhound, you know, like on the track. And cats, when they're running, they look like the little rabbit on the track that they have to chase when they go around the circles. Oh my god, like it was too late to stop her. She didn't get her, like kind of got away like in the nick of time, like up high onto the next fence. But oh my god, like my stomach just like fell out through my bum hole. I think I have like trauma from this now. I need to take a minute. Okay, but there's no time, so we just have to get back to it. But holy shit. Okay, number 2. And we gotta speed this up now because I got things to do. Like I'm just rambling and like wasting time. Okay, second one, best sequel you've read so far this year. And I think for these ones, it's the 2 sequels I read to The Witch Boy. So it's like a graphic novel by Ostergtag? Something Knox Ostergtag. Hold on, I'm gonna look now. Molly Knox Ostergtag. It's a graphic novel about this like magical community of witches and like were creatures, or like creatures that can turn into animals. And the men, they turn into animals, and the women, they practice witchcraft, you know, just like spells and sort of things like that. And never the twain shall meet. Never shall a woman change into an animal, and never shall a man, you know, do normal sort of like spells and witchcraft. And each of those different kinds of magics are protected by that specific kind of gender community. So, you know, if like a woman was to take the knowledge, you know, secretly of turning into an animal, it'd be like considered stealing, like, you know, an outrage. So you got this boy whose natural inclination magically is more towards the spells. So he can't change into animals. He doesn't naturally have that ability, but he can make magic happen through spells. And the women and everyone, they're just like, that's disgusting, that doesn't happen, you know, girls are witches and boys are these were creatures, and you can't have a witch boy. But it's clearly his identity, it's clearly naturally his ability. And that book was really good, and I talked about that one before. But these other 2 now are the sequels, and you have like new characters and stuff. Like there's one character who's not a witch or anything, she's just a friend to the main character kid. And there's also this other girl who is in foster care, and so people don't know that she's a witch. Like it wasn't able to be passed down to her. So this community, after like in the first one, like I don't want to give it away, but it's like a happy ending. They, you know, realize among themselves that, you know, these sort of like extreme sort of gender roles are stupid, you know, and that people don't always fit into that kind of box. So why can't girls be were people sometimes and boys be witches sometimes? And they sort of like think about all the times in the past when it actually has happened as well. Like it's not a one-off, it's like, you know, normal. And so in these sequels you meet other kids who are also affected by this, and like they bring in, you know, like new issues, and it's cute. I enjoyed it. Number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. Okay, this is Alan Warner's Nothing Left to Fear from Hell, and it's signed by the author. Cool. This is a series. It's like a Scottish history series, which includes Hex by Jenny Fagan, which I loved. It was one of my favorite books of last year, I think. And also Rizzio by, I don't know, I'll put it up. But each of the 3 books, so those 2 and this one, are part of this series depicting certain bits, or sort of like small bits of Scottish history, and sort of like writing them out in like a fictionalized sort of way. And this one is Culloden, the battlefield, the sort of like Jacobite rising and stuff, which is the same sort of stuff from Outlander, but I don't want to make it weird. But anyway, I loved those 2 other books, Rizzio and Hex. Brilliant. I love, like, they were written by 2 different authors, but I'm now in love with those 2 different authors. Those authors who I hadn't read anything by before, I now love them because the books were so good, and I sort of like discovered those authors through it. So I've not read any Alan Warner either. I know that he has written other things that people really like, but hopefully this one will be as good. I'm so excited. Next one is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Lights by Brenna Thummler. Like, I don't know if you know these ones, but she does Sheets and Delicates. So it's like a sequel to these ones. It's like it's a graphic novel, right, about this sheet ghost. So he's a ghost, but he's like covered in a sheet, and he makes his way to this sort of like place in the real world, like in, you know, non-dead world, just back in real life. And he meets this girl who's running a laundromat after her mother died, and her dad sort of went into a deep depression. She's sort of like keeping the family laundromat business alive. So she like washes all these sheets and stuff, and he invades her life, and like they become friends. He's sheet ghost, and she like does sheets. Anyway, Delicates, which was the second one of that one was really good. And now there's Lights. So I don't know what it's about. It comes out in September, but I'm like gonna pre-order it because the other two were so good. Number 5 is Biggest Disappointment. And unfortunately, I was going through my list of the books that I've read this year and found a load of disappointments. Don't want to say that 2023 has let me down or anything, but 2023 sort of let me down. So I'm going to go with 3 disappointments. Not 1, 3. Okay, first one being The Midnight Club by Christopher Pike. Doesn't Christopher Pike like do scary books? Okay, I feel like as a kid, Christopher Pike was a guy who wrote scary books for teenagers. Okay, too scary for me because I'm not a teenager. I'm a kid. I'm not ready yet. Okay, now I'm ready. Lay him on me. Lay on all the Christopher Pikes. Okay, I want to be scared. I want to live that life. But don't read The Midnight Club if that's how you feel, because Midnight Club was not scary. The idea is that they're supposed to tell scary stories, but in essence, it's just a bunch of sick, dying kids in a hospice home, learning as much about the world and themselves and their relationships as they can before they leave this world. Okay, depressing as fuck. That brought me all the way down, and it wasn't scary, not at all. That was very disappointing. I almost didn't finish it, okay, but I did, and now I'm angry at myself for being like wrangled into this idea that I can't just finish a book in the middle when I don't like it. The second one, The Library Suicides by Fleer David. I read this one in Dowithon, okay, for the month where we read Welsh stuff, and I heard that it was really good. There's a whole movie and everything about it. People were sort of raving about it. It's this idea that it's like a big, massive sort of maze like library. It's like a national library, but in the future a bit. And these 2 twin girls work in it, and they use the maze as a way to sort of get revenge on this man who they think has driven their mother to commit suicide. Seems a bit edgy, seems a bit weird. No, super boring, super stupid. And the movie, even worse, because they took out the one element of that book that was actually good, which was like the futuristic sort of dystopian sort of element. Like, no. Disappointment. Stupid! Okay, third one. And this is going to be a controversial opinion, but I'm going to go with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Like, please don't come for me on this, okay? Because that will hurt my feelings. But also, I'm ready to die on this hill. Okay, so, I mean, come for me if you want. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow was not good. I said it. I said it. It was boring. I said it. I'm sorry. It went on too long. Every scene was too long. It should have been cut in half. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I felt like if it was literally half the amount of pages, it would have been good and I would have enjoyed it. But because they took one thing that was good and stretched it out to within an inch of its effing life, it was too long and super boring and not good. And I'm sorry. Okay, number 6 is Biggest Surprise. Okay, this may be where you start to really question my book judgment. Okay, if on the last one with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, that didn't make you question my judgment, I feel like now might be where it happens. Okay, this book, I started reading it thinking it was going to be really shit, because the very idea of it sounds like a joke. Okay, and everyone was bagging on it. They're saying this is literally the worst book I've ever read. Okay, but then I read it, and actually, I enjoyed it for many reasons, and it is Spare by Prince Harry. Okay, like, stay with me here on this one. Okay, it was ghost written, so he, you know, wrote it, like, he put in his words and his, you know, direction and his experiences and what he wanted to say and the message he wanted. But then the wordsmithing and sort of like the setup of the book and the organization and everything, that was somebody else. That was a professional author, okay? So it's not actually shit. It was organized and sort of written and put together by a professional author who's quite good, I think. Personally, I enjoyed it. And Prince Harry's contribution to it, like his life and his experiences and everything, they are actually super interesting. He's a very interesting sort of dude. Like, yeah, okay, he thinks and says like some weird shit sometimes. Like, he was dropping everybody in it. like spilling the tea all over the fucking place with his family and everything. And I think like the tragedy of it is that he thought this book would like clear the air, and I don't know, a bit like sort of the phoenix sort of exploding into flames and then becoming ashes so that you can like grow something up from it, you know, like it can only be cleansed with fire, you know, sort of thinking now, after this is all out there, I've said everything, we've sort of burned this to the ground, we can now emerge as closer and happier and better family, you know, with strong relationships, we can be together again, when in reality I think it's done the absolute opposite of that. It's just burned all of his bridges to where he can never actually be part of his family ever again. They'll never forgive him, you know, and like that's the worst bit of it, because it really comes across that he's quite, I don't know, an innocent sort of person. Like I know he's like killed people, you know, he's been in the army or whatever, he's a grown man, he's not that innocent, but I feel like he's been quite sheltered, and I don't know, it's maybe, I don't know, maybe he's, I don't know, a bit like a knuckle dragger sort of dude. Like, I don't want to say that he's not smart, because that's a really mean thing to say. But I think he's not, you know, switched on really intensely in certain ways, like maybe social ways, or I don't know. I feel like he's quite innocent in how he comes across, things that he believes and things he thinks about his family. And I think he really wants to be close to his family, and he wanted this to bring them closer. And now it's just going to shut it down, and now he's just going to be alienated in California with his chickens, like, for the rest of his life, basically, you know, like his uncle who wasn't allowed back home. You know, anyway, I feel like I got an absolute load from that. It was super interesting, it was really engaging, it had me like in it the entire time, and then had me thinking about loads of different things to do with it even afterwards. Like, it was really thought-provoking, so big surprise on that one. Okay, number 7, favorite new author, debut or new to you. This one's definitely new to me, not new to everyone. And it's TJ Klune. Loads of you are going to be like, TJ Klune is brilliant. I can't believe you haven't, like, you've just now discovered him. But yeah, I've been sleeping on the TJ Klune train. I read 2 of his this year, and there's a 3rd one that I have on hold at the library. So I read the Cerulean Sea one, and also the Under the Whispering Door one. So one of them was about this sort of orphanage for monsters, where each of the monsters definitely has something about them that you would naturally think that's terrible and evil, but they're just lovely, you know, they're like sweet and like they're like kids. And you've got this guy who's come to sort of check on this magical creature's orphanage, and finds out that they're way lovelier than anyone thought they were. And also, you know, he sort of like reports back to this massive like government organization that wants to shut them down, like that they can't shut them down. Like, all the characters are just lovely, and like the message is lovely and so heartwarming. And then the other one, the Whispering Door one, is this guy is like the Baba Yaga. He like has this house, and he's like the gateway person for the house, where people who die, they like come through the house and they go up the stairs and they go into the afterlife or whatever, and he's like the keeper of that. But you have one guy who's just an absolute shite his whole life. He's an asshole, and he's come through to this gate and sort of gotten stuck. He's sort of like launched himself there. He refuses to die, refuses to go to the afterlife, and he sort of becomes a different person. He sort of like cleanses himself and like becomes like a better man, and like understands all of the ways in which he was an awful person before, and like learns to love, and like, I don't know, also again heartwarming and lovely. I just really enjoyed it. And I've got the puppets one, so it does like a wolf one, like Wolf Song or something, and then also like the Secret Lives of Puppets or something, and I've got both of them on hold at the library, so hopefully I'll get to that soon. Number 8 is newest fictional crush. We're only halfway through the questions. Quick. Okay, newest fictional crush. I'm gonna go with The Hangman by Louise Penny, okay? And the character in it is the main character. He's called Chief Inspector Gamache, and he's like this Canadian police inspector, but he's one of these ones who is really good at like reading a person. Like, he waits for them to fill in the silence, and then he just like reads them to shit. And like things going down, and then he's like, he stops and he's like, I know who the killer is. I have brought you all together to reveal to you who the killer is, and it's one of you in this room. And like, nobody else knows. Like, you know, he's the one person that's like figured it out just based on like randomly reading people, you know, like that. But there's a show on Amazon, I think, which is like based on other books in this series, like the Gamache stories. And that show is so good, and I didn't know that they were books, and so I was just watching the show like, oh my god, like this show is brilliant, I love it, and then realized that they were books, and now I want to read all the books. This is the first one I've actually read, but his version on TV, okay, he's quite cool as a person on TV, but he's even cooler in the books. Hot. So number 9, newest favorite character, and I've not actually finished this book yet. Please don't judge me, my life is a mess. I've been reading it for about 3 months, but it's very long, okay? It's Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. So I saw Barbara Kingsolver at Hay Festival, and she convinced me that this was going to definitely be an amazing investment in my life, that I'd actually, like, yes, read through this whole thing, even though it's a massive book. And I'm really loving it. And the main character is this Demon Copperhead kid. He's got red hair. He's from Appalachia, and his mother has died, and he's living with all these different foster families and stuff like this. Like, his life is really shit. But his character is brilliant. He's the best character. Like, he's really upbeat, and he's really, like, insightful. And he, like, really reads a room really well. He sort of like takes in other people, like really watches people and listens to people and learns about them and sort of takes in things deeper than what they even know about themselves, you know what I mean? Like, he's one of those kind of characters. And he's really funny. Like, he always has like something really funny to say about a situation. Like, it could be a really crap situation, and he'll just sort of like give his take on that situation. It's actually quite funny, you know. Anyway, brilliant character. I love him. Number 10 is A Book That Made You Cry. And I've talked about this book previously a bit. I did like a 90-second snippet that I contributed to a video on Gunpowder Fiction and Plot channel. I'll like link that below. It was one of like a bunch of people who sort of like did a 90-second spot about a book that they loved but which made them cry, like a sort of like miserable but amazing book. And I did this one, which is The Blue Book of Nebo. And this book I read in Dewithon, so in the month of like Welsh books, and I read this book actually in Welsh, I think last year or the year before. I think it was 2020 maybe. But because like my Welsh isn't great, like especially reading it, I'm not very good at reading it, I was worried that I maybe missed out on a lot of like nuance and things like that. So I wanted to read it again in English, and I read it this year, and holy shit, it's beautiful but so sad. It's just basically about this woman and her son in the apocalypse, pretty much. Like, something has happened. They live in North Wales in like a sort of rural-ish sort of community. Something has happened, like a nuclear bomb. They don't know what it is because there's no news. They don't know really what's happened. But everything has collapsed, and people have died, and people have fled, and they're the only ones left in their neighborhood. So sometimes they go through to other people's houses and they look through their stuff and they get crap or whatever. But they're basically living off the land. They sort of grow their own food. They sort of go hunting, you know, they sort of collect things from various people's houses when they can't sort of make it themselves. And they spend a lot of their time sort of like reading and writing and immersing themselves in literature and in the Welsh language in ways that they would never have been able to do had they been part of the sort of like normal modern rat race, you know, like sort of school, work, school, you know, all these sort of things, these busy lives that we lead. It was basically saying that their lives have had to collapse and slam to a halt before they're able to fully immerse themselves in these sort of art pursuits, these sort of literature and language and writing and reading and everything. And as it goes through, they're writing this book called The Blue Book of Nebo, which is their account of what's happened. And it's beautiful. It's poetic and just lovely, but holy crap, sad. Like, dead kids and bunnies, sad. Like, if you have a problem with dead kids or dead bunnies or anything like that, you should definitely not read it. But holy shit, like, sometimes I'll just be sort of like in a rough mood as well, and just sort of sitting on the sofa sort of feeling sorry for myself and think of it again and then cry again. That's how intense it is. Number 11, A Book That Made You Happy. And I think this one is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I actually gave this to my friend for Spain trip because I thought it was so good. Like, I think she'd really enjoy it. But it's about this woman who is living in the city, and she's dating this guy who she thinks she's gonna marry. And then all of a sudden he's like, I think we should break up. And she's like, what? And now she sort of like goes to live her life, but realizes that her whole life was her boyfriend. She's, you know, abandoned all of her friends and all of her like hobbies and everything. Like, her whole life was her boyfriend. So now she's got to move away. She moves to a different town, gets a new job, sort of tries to start her whole life again, and meets this woman who is like part of the village, but in a weird way. She's like head of the village, but not the mayor. It's just that everyone sort of, you know, bows down to her in a way, shows her deference, like they know that she's there and they treat her in a very extra respectful way, but you don't know why. And then that woman and the main character, they become friends, they start doing things, and the main character starts showing the same sort of codependence intensity with this person as she did with her boyfriend, and she sort of realizes, and she's like, I'm doing it again. And then she also realizes that this woman, who everyone is like a bit afraid of and respects to shit, she's a witch, she has magical powers, and now she's like, what do I do? I'm stuck. Anyway, brilliant. I loved it. It's like about happiness and making your own happiness and making your own happiness independently on your own, and like loving the people you want to love but not being like codependent on them, blah blah, like it, but also really funny sort of like magical element, you know, of like her like witch friend getting revenge on people when they're mean to her, you know, because she has magical powers. Okay, number 12, most beautiful book you've acquired this year. So I don't really buy books anymore, which is really good. Like I haven't really bought any books at all this year, except for the books that come to me through my book subscription. I get one book subscription box every month that has 3 books in it, and one of them is Bored Gay Werewolf by Tony Santarella, and it is the most beautiful book I've gotten this year. Look at how pretty it is. Look at those colors. Ugh, love it. Smart take on the doomsday logic of late capitalism and the complicated meeting point of masculinity and sexuality. More than that, though, and like Scooby-Doo with Grindr or Stranger Things with sex and ennui, it's a buddy novel about finding your pack, the power of friendship, and learning how to be comfortable in your own shaggy werewolf pelt. Love it! Okay, number 13 is what books do you need to read before the end of the year? And dear God, all of the various like reading challenges I've entered, like the Pop Sugar one, the Eurovision one, the Savage one, the Simon Savage one, loads of them, and I have loads that I need to read for them. Like one particular being in Pop Sugar, there's one prompt where you have to read a book by an author with the same initials as you, and I'm having a really hard time finding something. Like I found one called The Anomaly, which I do have in my house, but I don't know if I want to read that. Like I'm not in that kind of mood, and I can't find anything else with the initials HL or HS. Do you know any? Like, people of BookTube land, I need you to help me. Can you think of any authors which are HS initials or HL? Because I'm having a hard time. The last one is content creators you've been loving. So I have like all of my normal ones that I watch normally. Like I just like a list of all the ones that I've been watching for years and years and years, and I always go to them first of all. But I was trying to think of ones that I've sort of added to my repertoire recently, like ones that I've been in love with sort of recently. And I thought there's one called Book with Many Covers, and she sort of like started out our channel in sort of a different way and sort of has changed it recently, but it's still quite funny. It's quite good. She sort of like in the garden talks about sort of like bunny rabbit or like Easter rabbit erotica, you know, or like Easter bunny erotica and stuff, and she's really funny and I really like her. Oh crap, my kid is home now. Ah, this is my last thing. Okay, the other two I really like. One is Fiber Artsy. She does Evil-a-thon. I'll put her down below. And then also Goddess of Gore, which I really love. I'll also put her down below. Okay, I have to go. If you've gotten this far, thank you for watching. Sorry for dipping out for a month. Hopefully that won't happen again. If you have any questions for me, comments, anything, comments about books, comments about life being crazy, books you've been reading that you think I'll like, or whatever, please let me know in the comments. That'd be great. And I will see you next time. Okay,
Bye.
Ready? Bye. Okay, wait, 1, 2, 3. Okay, ready?
1, 2, 3.
Bye.
Bye.
What?